Pride Month is here, y'all. But where is it? We've got no rainbow items, no pride flags, and not even a little extra glitter. Meanwhile, the DTI team has been pumping out update after update. So what's the deal? Another June has arrived, and once again, there's no official pride update. So today, we're going to look at why Dress to Impress has avoided doing a pride celebration, and what the developers have said about it, and whether or not we can realistically expect one in the future. Let's dive into it. Every year when Pride Month rolls around, players start asking the same question.
Can we please get a Pride update?
But it never happens, and players are mad about it.
Is there ever going to be a Pride update? I know it's a touchy subject for games, but yeah.
It sickens me that we aren't including Pride.
I'm very much getting the impression that they don't want to do one simply because they don't like it.
It's the big 2026, bro. Why is Pride considered something shocking?
And I get it. A Pride update feels like something DTI would do, right? After all, fashion has always been very connected to LGBTQ communities, and many of the terms and ideas that are common in the fashion spaces today can be tracked back to ballroom culture. If you're unfamiliar, ballroom culture emerged back in New York City during the 1970s and 80s, primarily within Black and Latinx LGBTQ communities, where competitors would walk categories, serve themed looks, and compete for trophies, all for recognition. Just like DTI. Many of the phrases that are now common online, words like shade, slay, serving, and realness, all originated back through ballroom culture. If you've ever seen the documentary Paris is Burning or the TV series Pose, both of them give a great look at the history and the significance of that scene. And obviously it goes without saying, RuPaul's Drag Race. But the point being, Dress to Impress is basically a recreation of ballroom culture. So why hasn't DTI ever done a Pride update? Well, we finally got an answer. Recently, one of the developers addressed this question directly.
Wait, Zach, is there no Pride Month update?
I'm not sure. It would be so cool, but it wouldn't be called Pride Update. I can tell you that the reason we cannot make a Pride update, or at least call an update Pride and have symbolisms of the community, is because our game will be shadow banned or hidden for countries that don't accept LGBTQ+. A massive chunk of our dev team is LGBTQ+, and we of course love the community that we are in. But we also sadly have to play it on the safer side when things like this are wanted.
So in a nutshell, it sounds like the team would like to celebrate Pride, but feels limited by the realities of operating on the Roblox platform. But what does that actually mean? I did a bit more digging. Roblox itself doesn't prohibit LGBTQ content. However, Roblox operates globally, and different countries have different laws and regulations regarding LGBTQ topics. So, hypothetically, if DTI released a Pride-themed update, some countries could object to that content and potentially pressure Roblox to take action based on local laws and restrictions.
There may be times where we have to remove specific pieces of content at the request of governments or regulators. In these cases, we would first evaluate whether that content violates Roblox's global community standards. In cases where content does not violate our community standards, but still violates local laws or regulations, we may take actions to suppress that content in the region specified.
And this isn't purely theoretical. We do have some precedent for this already, unfortunately. In 2025, Russia restricted access to Roblox, with officials citing concerns about what they described as LGBTQ propaganda aimed at minors. And beyond that, nearly 70 countries around the world still criminalize same-sex relations. And a handful of those countries, the punishment can actually be as severe as death. So if you hear all of this and you're still unhappy that we haven't got a Pride update, I think you still could criticize the DTI team. You could argue that they're being overly cautious. You could argue that they shouldn't allow discriminatory laws in certain countries to dictate what they can and can't celebrate, and that taking a public stand would be more important than maintaining access in every region in the world. Potentially, them saying this could be interpreted as them saying they want access to as many regions as possible to make the most money possible. However, I also think it's important to acknowledge that we don't actually know what consequences the developers could face for doing something like a Pride update. We don't really know what kind of restrictions or platform complications could result from repeatedly running into conflicts with local regulations. I unfortunately couldn't find any official Roblox statements that clearly explained what would happen in a situation like this, but It's possible that perhaps the DTI team is afraid that they might lose their whole game if too many countries filed complaints against them, for example. So while some people see this as avoiding controversy, it could also be possible that the team is simply trying to protect the game and ensure that millions of players can continue to access it worldwide. I think that without knowing the full picture, it's difficult to say exactly where that line should be drawn. So I myself am going to withhold judgment of the dev team simply because I don't think we know the entirety of the consequences that they could face for doing something like a Pride update. And I certainly wouldn't fault them if the whole game itself was at risk of being removed simply because they did something like a Pride update, which would suck if that is something they're actually facing. In the end, it seems like many of the members of the development team, including some of them that are queer themselves, do actually want to celebrate Pride, but aren't entirely sure how to navigate that on the global Roblox platform. And honestly, it's kind of a sad situation because whether you're talking about fashion or self-expression or ballroom culture, the LGBTQ communities have had a massive influence on this space that inspired games like Dress to Impress in the first place. And those communities deserve to be thanked for their contributions. So hopefully the devs eventually find a creative way to acknowledge that history, and hopefully Roblox also finds ways to improve the way that they can support creators to help them celebrate marginalized communities without fear of breaking regulations and getting punishments. But regardless of what the official game does, Pride isn't something that only exists through an update. Obviously, the community can still find ways to celebrate, support one another, and just have fun all month long. Just curious, what do you think about this? Do you feel like DTI is being overly cautious? Do you know of any ways that the community is celebrating Pride that perhaps you can share in the comments to help other queer folk? Or if you know of any other DTI folk who are celebrating Pride through a private server or a Discord, drop it in the comments, let us know. Until we get an update, we all have to bind together to find ways to celebrate. So with that in mind, happy Pride, everyone. If you've made it this far, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you out on the runway. Oh, wait. One more thing I totally forgot to mention. Let's not forget that Lana is DTI's resident queer icon. If you're watching videos like this, you probably already know that. But for anyone who doesn't, Lana and Nurse Julie are canonically a couple. And for all my personal gripes about the game's increasingly convoluted and weird campy lore, I admittedly am glad that the developers chose to make their main protagonist queer. Like I said, DTI draws on so much inspiration from LGBTQ culture that it feels fitting for that connection to be reflected in their central NPC as well. So, happy Pride, Lana. Sorry that your backstory seems to consist mostly of, unresolved trauma and vaguely defined antagonists. But who knows? Maybe this year she'll finally get over Nurse Julie and do something crazy like shave her head or get a butch pixie cut and finally spend Pride at a lesbian bar. Nah, who am I kidding? That's way too realistic for DTI lore. She'll most likely be spending her Pride with demons in the underworld somewhere and a bunch of random doppelgangers for some reason. Either way, happy Pride, Lana.